Hey, Karen.
It's so good to see you again.
I know. Great to see you. I'm excited about today as well.
I know. So I'm super excited because today we have the privilege of hosting our exceptional guest, Wema Hoover. She's a global diversity, equity, inclusion leader with an impressive track record in transforming corporate cultures. Wema is a principal and CEO of Be Limitless Consulting, which provides culture, talent management, and DEI advisory services to unleash the full potential of a company's workforce. And Wema is also an official member of the Forbes Coaches Council, and she served as the global head of diversity, equity, inclusion at Google, Pfizer, Sanofi, and Bristol Myers, where she led efforts to create inclusive work environments and drove high impact organizational change. This is so exciting.
Nice.
All this incredible work.
Hi, Wema.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi,
Good
hi.
evening. How are you both?
Good. Thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here and just to have this exchange and dialogue on the incredible work and support that MVP has given.
This is fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for giving the time, right? The best gift, time. We'd love to get started with just getting to know you a little bit more, and then we can explore any kind of advice or tips or information you have to pass on to young professionals of color navigating a successful career. How did you get here? How did you end up focusing on DE&I initiatives and working for some really outstanding Fortune 500 companies? How did that all happen?
Yeah, well, thank you, Bob, for the question. My background, currently I do work in DEI, but quite frankly, my background is in organizational development. And I'm also an executive coach. So I think, coming up in that way through starting in the Big Five accounting firms, I started in Arthur Andersen. And yes, I am dating myself because you can work backwards, how old I am. But coming through, that organization and working in OD and working in succession plans and working in organizational structure and then going to PricewaterhouseCoopers and having the opportunity to work across businesses and really looking at how to maximize potential. It was a natural transition to then, actually kind of putting my toe in a new, emerging area at the time, which was, how do we create conditions and environment that can tap into the best talent, skills, and abilities of everyone. And that's when I transitioned to Bristol Myers Squibb. And in that role, had amazing experience doing a lot of global work as an HR business partner and working in organizational development. And through that work is how I ended up in diversity, equity, inclusion. Because one of my biggest projects was, working towards helping leverage and creating the structure of an R&D operating center in Bangalore, India. And, through the natural work of working across time zones, cultures, hierarchies, and, just the competence of understanding the different perspective and motivation and values that's coming from two completely different countries. It was a natural transition to diversity, equity, inclusion because I focused on cultural competence, global leadership, conscious inclusion. And that really was the foray. And it was, really to drive better teaming, better, more, informed and culturally intelligent leaders, and better structure and systems that will allow us to gain the best insights from a employee workforce population that, we're not like we are. So we were, leading with curiosity and to tap into and create the conditions to ensure that we got their experience, right, and their contributions fully. Right. And that's how kind of I, went into that role and, was asked to join the diversity and inclusion team there, and then ended up leading it. And so it was not happenstance, and I think it was intentional because the way that I came into the role was through kind of the systems approach, right? Looking at, culture, behavior, business processes, and then outcomes. And so throughout my career, I have used that model and framework to really drive the work, which is inclusive, of talent management, OD, coaching, development, all of those things, which, at the end of it, was wrapped into a DEI umbrella. But it is really consisted of all of those very critical touch points and talent interventions to maximize the workforce.
I mean,
Nice.
So much to unpack in your entire journey. I'm going to take you back though a little bit, right? To your first job, right? What was your first job? And as you look at, the trajectory of work today, right? Compared to where you were when you got out of school and you embarked on your career, how has that changed over time, and how do young people need to think about how they enter the workforce compared to how you entered the workforce 5 years ago?
I'll take it. Yeah. 5 years ago, of course. Yeah, that is like, such a great question. And my first job was an internship in college where I interned at this firm that did therapy. I thought it was going to be a social work. So it was a clinical therapy firm. And what was interesting going into that job, there was just onset that I'm going to, be here, count my hours, my internship hours. This was something that was expected, but it was very rote. As I thought, because I thought, it was mapped out. You got to go to an internship. You do this before your sophomore year. You have to do these things. And so I was just looking at it from just a check the box exercise. However, I got so much more. Being there, having, amazing colleagues that were more senior with me than me, just invest in me, saw my eagerness and just gave me more, taught me more, expanded my, vision of what was possible. Do I think I could have got more out of it? I probably could if I was a little bit more intentional and a little bit more thoughtful of it beyond just being an internship and checking the box. And I think today's young people, that is a critical necessity. Because, the world that they are in right now, it is so vastly interconnected, and not only going into the job, maybe in one industry and have, in one sector, but it will impact every other sector, every other community, every other demographic so quickly at the touch of their hands, right? Mm-hmm. And because of that, this now global interconnected world that we are, the impacts that we have, whatever we say, outside of our organizations and outside of our jobs, if they're on social media, mm-hmm. whether or not they're reflecting or they know they reflect the organizations they work for, is going to be held as a standard, assessing them as a part of whatever organization, company that they are. So I think a lot more intentionality around, the places, that they are seeking, making sure that there's shared values and that they not only believe in the work themselves, but see themselves as representative of that work, right, wrong, or indifferent. And then third, really using it to test those things and those skills that they want in their future career. And I do think our young people are doing that more, just because, I have a senior in high school, and what they teach them to do and their work that they have, I'm so impressed, because they're literally giving them a global mindset and thinking beyond just, the town, the state, the country, how does it impact the world? But I think even taking that into their jobs and saying, this is my role, and I may be, the most junior, or, the newest person, the most junior person on the team. However, I still can make a difference. And not only understanding that, but taking pride in that and bringing that into the office and into their work every day.
Can I flip that on you in terms of the employers? How do they ensure that their interns are having these really positive, growth-filled experiences. I remember back in my day, 5 years ago too.
Of course. Yes, of course. 5 years ago.
I spent a lot of time doing internships, and they weren't paid at this time, right? And I think there definitely is a shift in how employers think about how they structure work because they have to now pay for it.
Right.
But now they have to pay for it, but how much you pay is also just a varied factor. So, in your view, when you look at organizations and their engagement with the young people entering the workforce, whether it's specifically internships, but also their first role, how should they be thinking about attracting the right talent and ensuring that experience is something that is meaningful and relevant for their careers going forward and for the company?
Yeah, Karen, that's a great question. And I think that is essential because right now, I think organizations are finally opening their eyes that, interns or, the most junior people or new people coming into the organizations that are, like just new to the workforce, they're seeing that they have value. So there's a value proposition because they're understanding that things from a technology standpoint, from a social media standpoint, just from an understanding of how the world is operating may have a different way of, presenting itself, and that these new, young people and more junior people can really help shape the organization, the culture, the way that you understand your customers and clients. And so there is a higher value proposition on what they have to give, whereby for you and I, of course, 5 years ago, the mindset was, we're pouring into you. We're teaching you. The value proposition that is here is not from you, it's from us. So thereby you should be, in a state of gratitude and be willing to give and provide and shape. Where now I do think that there is quite significant awareness and appreciation just for the contributions that, the junior and the young people can make, not only in culture and in teaching, the more experienced workers, but also, challenging the status quo in a good way, having fresh thinking, bringing innovative, perspectives and ideas and approaches, and really being open to that. And I think organizations that are mature enough, and I do say mature enough, to be open that, all things do not come in the package of a senior leader with X amount of years, with X experience in industry that, will equal success. If they are mature and progressive enough to see that, the value that they can get can come in any shape and form, and those learnings will be the essential part of their growth and expansion, they will win. And they will be able to not only take advantage of the skills and the contributions of the young workforce, but they will actually be seen as attractive employer to these young folks, and desirable to be there because they know they have an environment of like experimentation, innovation, challenging the status quo, and that their voice will be heard.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Karen has heard me talk about more than once how interns have changed my life. I had an intern in an organization a startup I was part of, who showed us the internet in 1992. Right. I had someone that I was mentoring here with MVP show me AI over a year and a half ago or so. And that's changed things. So having a young mindset as it should be part of every boardroom in America, really, I think, or
Absolutely.
at least access to the young thinking and the new ways of doing and executing. And
it should be a requirement.
Yeah. And how about skill set? If you think about skill set, Wema, what are the must-have skills that young professionals should be considering sharpening? They should consider sharpening when they're in these internship roles. What are some skill sets that you think are just paramount to having a successful career?
Yeah, I think today One, to be open, willing, and actually excited to work across difference. Because I don't know what industry or what organization or, what company that you can say you're going to have, just a one homogenous customer or client group. All of the industries and, most of the organizations we see have clients and customers that, really span the range of demographics, from race, from gender, from sexual orientation, from background, from lifestyle. So that openness to connect, to understand, that is critical. I also think there should be a focus, and I tell this because, again, I have a 17-year-old daughter, to communicate with words. Everything is not a bite-sized text. Everything is not something that could be, just said with one word. I mean, that's my greatest struggle with her, because how is your day? Fine. What does fine mean? Elaborate. I know in your head, all these wonderful things are going through of your day and what you did and how you showed up, but articulating it could be a good thing, not only for you to remind yourself and to highlight, but to, really show your, investment in a exchange of dialogue. So that communication piece and really pushing themselves, which, quite frankly, I do think I have a whole nother position. I think that COVID really hampered our youth in that way, in terms of their ability to their interpersonal skills and communication skills. And so that I think that needs to be very much emphasized. And the third thing I would say is really the flexibility. I do think coming, post-COVID and coming back into, an open workforce where people are kind of having hybrid work, there has been a heightened sense of pressure that our young folks need to know what they're doing, when they're doing, and how they're doing. And that all of a sudden, they're snapped their fingers and they have the script for the rest of their lives. I think that, we as adults, I think organizations, I think the community need to be supportive of them being on a learning path so that they can take experiences, grow for them, think more expansively and think about their careers more of a skyline rather than skyscraper, so they can really take the opportunities, development, internship, jobs to expand what they know, expand their skills, instead of this, mindset that, quite frankly, the old school, and I would say each and every one of us are a part of that, where we looked at success as vertical, going straight up. Right. And I do think it would benefit our youth so much if they really looking at it as just, like all encompassing. And like I said, as a skyscraper, and how that can help them be more rich, more robust. And, not only contribute to themselves, but actually bring that much more to whatever environment they end up in.
Can I go back to one of your points around the communicating with words? Right? Yes. And this is complaint. I'm going to say complaint. It's a complaint that I've heard from employers, right? Is that it's not just the words, it's the writing skills, right? It's knowing how to properly write an email, right? Or, curate information in a meaningful way that is easily understood. And it strikes me as odd because of my generation, where these were the core skills that we had to learn in order to just walk through the door. For students today that aren't getting that for whatever reason, any suggestions on how they can further develop those skills on their own after they listen to this podcast? They're like, I need to sharpen those. Like, how did they take that next step and go do that?
You know what? That I thank you for that, because again, I feel the same. I've had interns. I've worked with young people, and it's. I don't think it's something that is a lack of skill or a competence. Mm-hmm. I think it's just how they have been programmed to, their outreach to the world everything has been digitally. Everything has been sound bites. Everything is like 10 seconds or 30 seconds or less to get there on TikTok. They say it's 16 seconds to hold someone's attention. I think that that's programmed in their mind. And so it's around, I think, literally that human interaction and that meaningful conversation that they need to be engaged in. And I do think once they are, there is a true appreciation for that, and they can be opened up. I think that their natural, behavior has been so wired to be sound bites and to be, executable because, you're living in this fast paced world, putting them in environments when they do come into your organizations, making sure that they are a part of, the weekly team meetings, making sure that when you have some brainstorming sessions or you do debriefs that you stop, pause, and you tap on them to give their feedback and insight. You make that an intentional action and practice. So you help them build the muscle and then build the comfortability with being able to do that. If you don't do that, those behaviors, which quite frankly, I don't think it's their fault, but they will automatically, go back to and resort to what is natural for them. But it is absolutely something that the youth need to work on and really be coached on. And the environments that they're in have to be mindful of and create conditions to be intentional, to tap on them, to ensure that they are engaged.
Can I go a step further with that, with the intentionality too, but also, as a Black woman, right? Well, as a woman, but then as a Black woman, right? It took me a long time, right, to get to a point of comfortability in using my voice in the way that I wanted to truly use it.
Yes.
And also, even in that discovery, right, there's many times that people didn't want to hear me use my voice. And it, was received in ways that I didn't want it to be received. Let's just say that.
I understand. Yeah.
And just based on your personal experience, growing up and also your work, if you're speaking to Black girls right now, right, how can they develop that level of comfort sooner than say I did? Because it took me a really long time. Right?
Yes.
Because it's such a powerful tool that they need in their toolbox.
Yes, that is such a important and necessary thing we must do for Black youth and particularly Black girls. I mean, there have been numerous, various studies, and they said that in organizational settings, in public settings, the Black woman's voice is the one that is usually unheard, but yet repeated. But we're never assigned credit, never assigned the creator of the idea. And it's almost, that kind of invisibility cloak that we wear because, we are not expected to be in certain places. And I can say from a personal perspective, where every single job and organization I have been the only. I have been the double only. I have been the triple and quadruple only, the only woman, the only American, the only Black, the only, the only youth. And so it was literally almost as tough it is to kind of pull a bulldozer up. It was just that strenuous for me to get the courage to force myself in every environment to speak. And I think the way to do that is understand that your perspective, your lived experience, the way that you show up in the world is necessary to help shape the minds and understand the conditions in the organization. One of my previous bosses. He was a man on, a very senior leader at one of the companies I work for, and brought me into as a senior role, an executive into another company, and work with him. And he became an advocate. And in this role, I had to make a very big move. I moved to another country, and I said, "How can I do this?" I'm I'm a single divorced mother. I'm a Black, I'm going into a very homogenous environment where, they may not like me because I'm American. They may not like me because I'm a woman. They may not like me and then, he pushed back and he said, that's why, because in every environment you have naturally built bridges to connect with people because you have to.
Yeah.
There was nothing natural that was in common. There was no, affinity that was there. But I would watch you intentionally figure out with each and every stakeholder, every partner. We worked in different markets doing M&A. You would find a way to build bridges to help us execute our work. Those relationships were critical. And that's why I won. Now, mind you, never saw that as one of my skills or capability. That's just a survival technique that I've had every day because I've had to. Went to school. I didn't go to a Black school. I lived in I was, a very non-diverse area, went to non-diverse schools.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, it was literally a muscle that I have grown to, but also from a personal perspective, I just happen to like people. I really have a curiosity for people. I love to hear their stories. I love to share on one-on-one. That's just something that is also innate in me. But I think with our youth, and especially our young girls, understanding we cannot underestimate the value of our voice to help advocate for those that are not seen or are not at the center of beauty, the center of, the financial, ability or ability in a market, the finance market, but really to help those environments see and bring in those on the peripherals and be able to share their experience. Because we do have a lens and a point of view that is wholly unique and different and necessary. And I think shaping and coaching and making sure that confidence is built in, and that confidence, which may be seen as a burden, but that muscle is developed so it doesn't seem taxing, so that you don't have to go home and recover for the next 12 hours because you just said something for 5 minutes in a meeting. You're like, I'm tapped in, I'm done. But actually see that as value add and help shape the environments. Because in absence of that, if we don't do that, and I have seen this also, then when you do speak up, there will be almost this feeling of you're intruding. You're not a part. You don't have entry into this club. You have never, and honestly, it's not. And I'm not trying to condone that behavior, but honestly, if they never have been exposed to it and don't understand it, and you're not conditioning them to be mindful of those experiences, and your voice and your point of view may not have the insight that it's needed. So that has to be coached and really, really, really be nurtured and honed in our Black youth, especially the girls.
That's so important. That what you just said about if you don't nurture it, it will feel like an intrusion. That is 100% spot on. You just sit with that.
Yes.
And then I'm wondering how this global experience has shaped you. You've worked I've read that you've worked in Europe and Asia, large teams, cross-disciplinary activities and work. How has this shaped you? And then what would you say to someone who is thinking, maybe, should I explore international work, or should I just stay here in comfy America? Or like, what advice would you have for them?
I would start by saying yes, 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 and yes. Literally, it's something I did. I always have worked globally. In all my roles, I've had to travel extensively. So outside of role, I've always had to travel. But then when I was given the opportunity to live in certain countries, because I knew that I can go and travel and stay a week or two, had a little bit more confidence, but still underestimated that. However, what I did recognize is that by going in those environments, that it would make me and force me to get out of myself and challenge myself in ways that is going to make me grow and be transformative in ways and in areas I could imagine. So I did live in France. Didn't plan on learning French, but I had to learn French because when I got there, I was like, oh, nobody speaks English in the cafeteria, in the mailroom. Oh, all the signs are in French. I got work to do. I'm going to go. Okay, I got work to do. And they, my organization supported me. They sent me away for 2 months at a time to learn French, but they didn't tell me that they do not speak to you in English. And so you would have a horrible headache for the first 2 weeks because you're like translate, but it worked. What I would also say is that it allows you to not only transform yourself, but again, transform those environments. You have to be, and one of the greatest thing I remind myself all the time, you cannot be what you don't see. So if you do not force yourself, if given the opportunity, to show up in environments that may be ones that someone of your background, color, age, sexual orientation is not, and really be able to allow them to know you, to get to understand your point of view, get to value it, get to appreciate it, get to integrate it, it will not be. And that's how you grow societies. That's how you allow people to have a greater appreciation of difference, of culture, of lifestyle. When they are exposed to it and are, for lack of a better word, forced to now challenge their own paradigm of thinking, their own stereotypes and unconscious biases, their own frames of references in a good way that now gives them a new model and prototype to say, okay, this is not what I thought it was, or she's not what I assumed all of this community was, or, oh, this is something that I really value and want now a part of my thinking, my approach, my strategy, the way that I show up and really bring ideas together. Then it becomes essential. And then that's where you create also pathways for other people behind you to grow, to evolve, to have opportunities. So go back to my answer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I've been really blessed with a number of international work assignments. I haven't lived overseas with work, but I'd go for extended periods of time. Just tremendous growth. I love what you said. You cannot be what you don't see, I think is what you said.
Yes.
That's so true. That's so true. And I think individuals that have the international experience, either working with international teams on or off U.S. turf, is an opportunity not only for growth, but to be a more valuable employee or be a more valuable asset, period.
Yes.
Because of that international experience. And probably better than most, it's not just about speaking another language. It's be incredibly sensitive, understanding, and embracing the culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. And how would you know that if you didn't experience it?
Yes. 100%.
Well, for students or young people because, international travel is a privilege in many situations, right? But
sure,
the idea of becoming more culturally aware and culturally competent is something that I think we can all do to some degree, right?
Without question.
So, like for people who don't have the means just yet, what's some everyday things that they could do to amplify their cultural awareness?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's so many now, because we live in a digital world and you can access all these groups. I'm still a part on like Instagram, these, kind of one about food because I like food. I have the best French patisseries and recipes. So I'm still a part of that. I'm also, a part of like, my daughter and I try to keep up our French. So all the new books we're a part of. But if you live in like a close city, I'm in Princeton, so I live between New York City and Philadelphia. They have communities. They have meetup groups that you can very easily. And when I say it's on every culture, everything, be curious and just go build relationships. Because one thing I will say is that people who are living in other environments and cultures that are not their own, they welcome people who just want to understand their culture, their customs, their values. They welcome it. They welcome to share and bring people in. Not one, and I was a part of many and still, when my daughter's friends here, we celebrate Diwali, Chinese New Year, all of the things. I don't know one family or community that says, we don't want you here. And even my neighbors who are Muslim, they bring over food after, they have Ramadan and they share their custom. If there is a desire and you have ability to connect, even if it's outside of the meetup groups, if it's neighbors or people that you work with or classmates, expressing that in a very genuine way, I do believe will elicit openness, being welcomed, and an invitation to learn and explore more. And I can't remember one instance where I have been told or felt that there was a rejection of that. Not one.
That's true. People want to be seen and heard for who they are, right? And so that genuine interest. When you're talking, my son, he started taking French in 5th grade, and then during high school, it wasn't such a great experience. And then more recently, so he stopped taking French. And I was so sad because he really loved the language. But more recently, he's taken it back up. He does his lessons. And every now and then he's talking to all these French people. I'm like, where are these French? Like, where are they from? He's like, it's a Discord group, and they have all these conversations and they're learning from each other. And I just think it's great. And the other day he was like, maybe I'll, he said, which French speaking place should I go? Right. And in France. And maybe I'll just work from there for a month or something. I was like,
oh, bravo.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Well done.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Huge departure from the kid that didn't want to go anywhere. Okay. So it could come over time.
That's fantastic.
Love it.
That's fantastic. Given your experience as an executive coach, I would imagine that getting people to see something in a different way or shifting mindset is part of that work. And when you think of young professionals, are there any things there that are worth exploring today? Are there any specific either things that you commonly see that need adjustment, or that you'd like to see adjustment in mindset, especially in the early stages of some career? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do think that with our young folks today, and I would say that, the environment that we're in, they happen to have so much pressure and competition. Like everything is a competition. I don't know whether it's because social media, competition for likes, competition for the amount of people that you call friends. So I do think that, changing mindsets for the youth is really around quality versus quantity, right? Quality of your experiences, whether you're looking for a job and you may have your eyes sought on a big organization or a multinational, but you get like a community organization or a nonprofit, really looking at what is the quality that you can get there that could be comparative, but in a different way, and helping them be more agile, to what they learn, what they take away, and how it can help them build their skills as employees and in their profession, but also build their character. Because I think we have a heavy emphasis on our culture on getting things done, being the superstar, getting great grades, SATs, and everything. We don't emphasize, I feel, as much on the character, on how you show up and the energy you bring in the environments, and how do you make environments more open, more happy, people feel more energetic, more able to be their authentic selves. That, I think, is one of the hugely undervalued assets that great leaders possess that we don't speak about enough. And when you think about leaders, you think about employees, you think about teams, we all know those people that we want to work with. We all know those people and how they make us feel when we get around them. We all know those individuals that we all know when they feel when we get around them.
Yeah.
But we don't articulate, we don't coach for it, we don't advise that. So in my coaching, I always counsel to know the energy that you're stepping into in the room, and really going so far as to say, give them tools and techniques to manage their parasympathetic, state, to make sure they're in a state where they can receive, they can be open, they can, be able to give their best and not be kind of hyper focused on executing, being seen, having perfection as the, the outcome and deliver of everything. I think that is hugely important, especially today.
Would you say what I've been noticing is that young people don't want to wait like we did 5 years ago, right? For their titles and their big jobs, right? And in many cases, they don't have to. Like, we're seeing really higher level executive jobs going to a younger age group, right? Would you say, in terms of developing their leadership style, that what you just spoke about around character is an accelerant to getting there? So if I'm a young person, I have ambitions to be the chief marketing officer or chief executive officer within, mid to large organization, established organization. What's my key to skyrocketing to the top?
Yeah, I definitely think character. Character is not only going to be one of the essential qualities, it'll be a differentiator. Because I think because it's so individual and personal, it also has to come in a form and a fashion that is authentic to that person, to their orientation, to the way they connect to the world, to the way they connect and interact, with other people, and to the work they do on themselves. So those leaders, and I have seen young people, and I've been in organizations where young leaders have been promoted, and that I can tell you has been, if you look across the board at most of them, their defining quality is their character. At almost, I would go so far as 80% of them. 80% is their defining character that differentiates them. And you can lean in and say, I understand. Yeah, the youth, but I get it. And I think, those individuals have hyper self-awareness or took the time to kind of do the work, whether it's coaching, whether it's personal development, whether it's that self-evaluation, to understand, where their gifts lie, not only from a technical perspective, but also from a leadership, a teaming, performance driven and just emotional intelligence perspective. They are able to identify that and understand, where their gifts and their strengths lie.
I want to be young again and get
not me. I was I don't want to be young again. The young, they got a lot of.
Do I get to keep what I've learned?
Exactly, that part.
If yes.
Well, we're listening to this podcast, and then we're off to races.
There it is. Yeah.
Do you want me to do my recap, Bob? Okay. So I was listening so intently, though, okay, that I might not have everything down. So Bob's going to back me up. So just to kind of summarize some of the top things that you said, right? So one, we want to really develop culturally intelligent leaders because they're going to be like basically a force in society, right? When you're a young person going out into the workforce, you want to be more intentional about the places that you're seeking to be a part of. You want to believe in the work and you want to be representative of the work. I thought that was really powerful. Young people need to understand, right, that there's a higher value proposition associated with them, right? They have fresh thinking, more innovative ideas and perspectives. And basically, my interpretation is walk into the room, walk into that situation, understanding what your value is.
Yes.
Talked about 3 must-have skills, being open, willing, and excited to work across difference, focusing on communicating with words, right? And being flexible, right? What you said I loved is think of your career more like a skyline rather than a skyscraper, right? That is such a powerful metaphor. And there's so many things. Okay. So I'm trying to cut through some of the things that I have here. And we cannot underestimate the value of our voice to advocate for those not seen or centered. And one theme that resonated throughout this entire conversation based on your experiences is that you should feel okay to put yourself in uncomfortable situations that will trigger your survival skills, right? And help you transform yourself and your environments. And of course, Bob mentioned this, you can't be what you can't see, I think I wrote that down wrong.
No, we got it.
What I miss, Bob? What I miss?
Yeah, not very much. You nailed a lot of it. I loved that you said, Wema, that confidence is developed. Mm-hmm. I think that is so true. Mm-hmm. And there's been some times in my life where people have said, I really like your confidence. I'm like, oh dear, right? Like, right? But it's powerful. Confidence is powerful. And the character bit, you may have mentioned it, Karen, but character is a differentiator, and I completely agree. Yeah, it is a differentiator, and it usually is. I would agree with you. One of the key reasons why promotions happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karen. Ready for some rapid fire questions?
I think so. I'm holding on.
Well, so just crisp questions. A story is acceptable, but let's dive in. What was your favorite subject in high school?
English. I love to write.
What was your least favorite subject in high school?
Statistics. It's too much information. too much.
I agree.
What's the best advice you ever received?
Laugh a lot. Just have fun doing what you do.
Have you received advice that you're glad you did not embrace? Did you have you had any really bad advice that you're really glad that you didn't execute on?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah. What is it?
And it's interesting because it's cultural, right? So when I moved to France and I was in an executive role and I was meeting with ex-com members, so executive committee members with CEO, I was told by one of the committee members saying, I said, I have my 90-day plan. And, she said, that's the worst thing you can have in France is a 90-day plan. You need to, the best thing that you can do is be quiet and listen and learn, because they respect deference, understanding, and being and really people having interest in tradition and culture. They didn't want the American, I'm coming in there to take over and change things. That was the best advice that I had. And I threw my 90-day plan out the window.
It was good advice.
And then after that, they were like, oh, it was wonderful. She came in, and I did nothing. I just did But I listened and I learned.
That is insane. What's your greatest superpower?
My authenticity.
Nice. How about your greatest weakness, and how do you navigate that?
I go really deep, which is my Achilles heel and I think my blessing as well. So my weakness. When I get focused on a person, on a conversation, it is really hard for me to unlock because I am very connected to that moment, to that time, to that energy. So maybe I'd be 2 hours late for a meeting. I may forget something, but it's in that moment I feel that energy, that connection is so important and valuable and needed. It's almost impossible for me to unlock from it.
Wow. And wrap up question here. What's your why? Why do you do what you do?
My why. I essentially want to enable people to live their lives, openly, authentically, with love, laughter, and, no regrets. So in everything I do, I really try to have that at the heart and center of my coaching and the DEI work and the counsel to leaders, boards is around, making it something that means something to people and to yourself.
That's fantastic. Wema, thank you for being part of Momentum Now and what we're doing here at MVP. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you, hear your advice, and thank you for the time.
And thank you. Thank you, both of you, for the great work you're leading, the necessary and critical and essential work. And I'm thrilled to have this conversation and be a part of it and this small capacity.
Thank you, Wema. Simply fabulous. Thank you.